WiLLcast number 41 was with Lauren from Excel Engineering. Becca, what does Lauren do?
Lauren is the HR manager, but not your typical HR manager. She's a cool HR manager.
Ooh, that's kind of a dig.
No, it is not. She
has a lot to do.
She has a ton to do.
It's like all encompassing. But as she did mention, they do rely a lot on their vendors for some of the policies and the procedures and some of the rules and compliance that people would often associate with the negative side of HR.
Yeah, and she gets to do a lot of the like the recruitment and the onboarding and what I would consider the fun HR.
Yeah, like kind of the ambassador for the company.
Yes, exactly. And she didn't start in HR too.
She did not.
She which I always find interesting. To me, HR seems like it would be something that's super, you go to school for HR, you understand the rule book and all that kind of stuff, but she had a really cool transition in that she started at Excel as, I think she said, an admin.
She was the front desk receptionist, I believe, 10 years ago. And as she mentioned...
when she didn't take a job
she did not take
NAFCO.
a job at NAFCO. So I interviewed Lauren about 10 years ago. I wasn't sure if she's going to bring that up, but she did.
I love that she brought it up. That elephant in the room was addressed immediately.
But she was great during that interview process. And, at the time, in terms of, the buildings and the company and the culture and everything that we had going on, she probably made the right decision to go to work at Excel.
She was pretty complimentary when she walked this room.
Oh yeah,
she was super impressed. So
we have
we're
come a
coming
long
for
way.
You, Excel.
Exactly, we've come a long way. I would say we have probably stolen some ideas from Excel when it comes to some of the office culture.
What's the expression? Imitation is
the best form of
flattery. Exactly.
But yeah, it was great to talk to her, and I think we have a similar recruiting culture. We don't actively recruit engineers in Wisconsin colleges or anything like that, but just in terms of the open and honest communication and some of the different ways that they use to ensure that the people coming on board are a good fit, and some of the things that we do, there's some alignment there.
Yeah, definitely. And her personality was just really refreshing. It was fun to have her in here. Just fun talking to her. We got done. You guys thought you talked for a half hour.
It was almost an hour.
It was almost an hour. I thought you were messing with me when you guessed solo, but it didn't feel like an hour on my side of the cameras either, which is always a good sign.
And she seems like a great ambassador for Excel because she has done so much there. She has a broad cross section of skills and backgrounds related to Excel, from front desk receptionist. She worked on a project team.
Yep.
She's worked with engineers. And it sounded like as Excel continued to grow and this HR role came up, the owners of Excel talked to her, and they carved out this super important position for her, and she seems to be doing great.
Yeah, just learning from the top of the food chain there and absorbing everything and applying it to help new employees find their footing. Just great all around. And
exactly,
she goes to the Kentucky Derby every year.
She does, and she's into horses even beyond that.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Family tradition.
Such a cool family tradition. We won't give it
all
away.
Yeah, true.
It's about to you'll hear in like 30 seconds.
So this episode is also brought to you by WiLLsport, which is Wisconsin Lighting Labs sports lighting brand. We do indoor sports. We do outdoor sports. We have light poles. We have light fixtures. We have control systems. We do color changing lights. We do entertainment, sports lighting. What kind of projects do we work on specifically, Becca?
We are all across the board. So lots of football fields, soccer complexes, baseball, start looking indoor at arenas, but then also more of your court sports, pickleball, tennis, all those kinds of things. Complete lighting systems, which is where we can add a lot of value to these projects.
Almost all the parts, especially metal parts, are made right here in Wisconsin. All the final assembly is done at Wisconsin Lighting Lab. We use only the best ingredients in our products, and we have a lot of fun with the different applications. But enjoy this WiLLcast number 41 with Lauren from Excel. Kentucky Derby.
Yeah. This is probably my 21st 24th. We keep trying to calculate how many it's been.
24th time going?
Yep.
Wow.
So my parents have been going consecutively for, I believe it was 38 and 37 this year.
So it's kind of a family thing.
It's definitely a family thing. Yeah. My dad went down to the Kentucky Derby, whatever it was, almost 40 years ago. I think they camped in a tent in a parking lot. He went with a buddy that he was, I think, teaching with over at Pyre at the time. And, he was dating my mom. So, of course, came back from the Derby, knew my mom's family was really into horse racing. And he's like, oh, I'm going to impress the family. Let's rent an RV, go down there and camp. And the rest is kind of history. So it's been an annual thing.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's
Traditions
a lot
are cool.
of fun.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous.
Have you been there, Becca?
No, but it's on the list.
I know there's always parties down in Milwaukee
Yes,
every year.
there's always derby parties.
Derby party.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we just got awarded a really nice project. It's for a casino out east somewhere, but it's a huge horse track.
Oh, neat.
So it's not quite the Kentucky Derby, but it's a cool facility. So I haven't been to the Derby either, but once we get the project, at least go to a horse race.
Oh, you have to. Yeah. Really get the feel for it if you're working on the project. I highly recommend it. And
do you like horses outside of the Kentucky Derby?
Yeah.
Do you ride?
I've gone, we used to go horseback riding when we would go up to Minocqua on vacation,
nice.
One trail ride a summer.
Yeah.
So we haven't really gotten into it on the riding side as much, but my sister did work actually at a horse farm down in Lexington after Madison when she went to school for animal science. Ended up at the Mayo Clinic of Horse Hospitals, which is Root and Riddle Equine Hospital down in Lexington. So it was kind of an interesting transition from being fans of the Derby to her living down there, and she still is down there with my nephew too. So it's kind of a fun. We go every year. It's just that annual trip. You pack a lot in a few days. And
well, it looks like a ton of fun.
Yeah,
I usually catch a little bit of the race, but I know most of the fun is aside from the race, right?
The mint juleps, the occasional betting,
and we do a lot of horse arenas. I mean, like every single week we talk to customers that are. They're trying to put in lights and light poles for their private horse, like arenas and things like that. So, but so as far as work, you've been at Excel for 10 years.
Yep, about 9 years.
About 9 years.
Almost 10 years.
And you're in a human resources role.
Yep, human resources manager. I actually started at the front desk there.
Okay.
So I don't know if this is the best time to bring up the fact that I also had an interview with you guys at the same time. And I remember you guys are a little bit smaller, and so I can say honestly, the deciding factor was there were so many more people.
Yeah.
And I really liked the interaction. Yeah.
It was
So it was nice to
at that time. Understandable choice.
Yeah. Well, obviously now walking in the building, I'm like, oh shoot, was it the right one?
No, it was. It was a good choice. It's funny though, like, and this is like, I think it's really on topic on the HR side, and attracting, retaining really good team members, and just how important having a fun, inviting space is. 10, 15 years ago, we did not have a fun and inviting space, and that's it's one of our kind of missions is to continue to make work fun and exciting. Obviously work hard, the work and the product and the customers are always the most important, but attracting and retaining a good team is important.
Yeah,
so,
your people are your biggest asset.
For sure. For sure. So started out front desk, and then did you get into a marketing position at some point? Okay.
So when I started at Excel, we were at about, I think I was the 97th employee. Okay. So we started a little less than 100, and throughout the last 9 years, those first probably 18 months, I switched into a lot of different roles right off the bat because we were starting to grow at a pretty significant pace right away. So I moved into a project assistant role in our civil engineering department.
And what does that entail?
So our civil department works a lot with site plan design, stormwater management, wetland delineation. So I know, like with the project you guys have right now, so everything that goes into the site plan itself prior to the building going up. So what I would do is work with the managers and the employees for state submittals, local submittals, kind of just the project assistants on that side, communications, that sort of thing. So I was there temporarily, and then we had started with a CFO and a president, and that was our HR and accounting, and marketing department. We had an accountant, Colette, that she assisted with, but our CFO was really playing a lot of different, or wearing a lot of different hats, I should say. So it kind of started where we didn't have marketing. We didn't really have any designated HR. So kind of within that first 18 months, I was approached by both Jeff, our president, to kind of start assisting with some marketing items. And that was when social media was kind of really starting to come into play on the business side of things. So I helped with the social media pages. I started with some of the event planning for the company. And then on the HR side of things, Steve was our CFO, and he asked me to start helping just on the recruiting, some new employee orientation. So it really kind of started with just a little bit here and there. And, when you have a small company, kind of like when you guys started too, everyone takes on and wears a lot of different hats. So I was doing 3 or 4 different things in my one position. And eventually they just said, do you want to do just the HR and marketing? So it was a split 50-50 role. But when you're reporting to both the president and the CFO, it was really hard for a while, what's priority. So just communicating with both of them, it was a really good learning experience. Just getting a better understanding of the business, priorities, what was important. And then ultimately, as Steve over the last few years got closer to retirement, I transitioned to just primarily HR. So I still assist with some of the marketing stuff on a very small scale, trade shows, logo wear, but we've kind of just grouped that into our corporate aspect.
And there's an element of marketing in HR from you're trying to attract great people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's interesting with those roles because we're still pretty small and we have a lot of people that wear a lot of hats, but in those coordinator type roles where you're working with a lot of different people, you get to see a broad cross section of the business, which is kind of cool to see.
Yeah, and it's instrumental in helping you shape who you are as an employee and understand. And for myself, on the HR side of things, knowing I've worked in and with different departments, I hope that gives me a better understanding and that connection with what some of these people are doing in their day-to-day roles.
You can appreciate you can appreciate the rewards and the pain really of each role in each department.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. So like project administrator on an engineering team, balancing the customer aspect and the technical aspect and the project management aspect. What were some of the hardest things to learn in that role? Was it the technical or was it interfacing with the client?
I mean, when I started at Excel, and I was born and raised in Fond du Lac, I had no clue really what the architectural engineering world was to begin with. So starting at the front desk, that's pretty standard. You're interacting with clients, you're interacting with vendors, people coming in and out, employees. Sure. But when you really got into the project assistant side of things, I was just completely dumbfounded by what they actually do. So really learning a lot of the technical stuff. I can't even say I still understand to a degree all of it.
The build process and the delivery methods and all the different, documents and softwares that everybody's using. It's wild.
It's unreal. And I mean, even just, driving by your expansion right now, it's like, if I would have driven past that 10 years ago, I would have thought, they're a client and they asked a construction company to come build it. No concept of the middleman, which really is the design side of things, which Excel does. So it's been really neat to really learn more about that, to really understand what goes in behind the scenes, because you do take for granted, like, building pops up. It just happened overnight. It's like, no, there was a lot that went into that, probably several, changes, a lot of, change orders. There's all these different things that are going into the actual production of the building. But that was probably the hardest thing for me, was just the technical side, interacting with, the clients and, the different state local municipalities.
You're probably pretty.
That was fine.
You're probably pretty good at that.
That didn't bother me too much. But architectural engineering, the other, thing I've really learned and adapted with is the personality types. So it's a very unique world.
Why are you looking at me, Adam?
Because we have a pretty broad cross section of teams here. It's direct, production teams. Welders, we have assemblers, we have, software engineers, we have mechanical engineers, we have marketing teams, we have direct salespeople, we have strategic salespeople. But I'm sure it's interesting from a HR role. You start to see certain types of personalities attracted to certain types of positions, and engineers can be introverted.
I would say generally that's a good assessment.
There's certain characteristics that you can see often. Do you see different characteristics within the types of engineering roles? Like would mechanical versus electrical versus civil versus audiovisual, do you start to see different types of people drawn to certain positions?
You do, and I think it's hard not to look at it in a certain way. I guess what I'm trying to say is the project manager or the supervisor can also play a big role
For sure.
in the personalities in the department. So there may be more introverted people in a group. If the supervisor's more introverted, the group may tend to be more introverted. So it's hard to really make that classification by department. But we would, when I started
think this is super
there,
interesting.
it is interesting. I really enjoy it personally. There were days when I would go to someone's desk when I first started there and they didn't know me as well. And as the company, I know everyone there. I have to orientate everybody that comes through whatever you would say, everyone that comes through the door. And so I meet these people and I do really like them. Your personality types aren't always the same, but I'm just always blown away by all of the individuality and the people that we come in the door. So I used to go knock on someone's office and you could just see on their face, especially the introverted ones, oh God, Lauren's here again. Like I'm smiling.
I have never felt more seen in my entire professional life.
And so it's fun. I enjoy that. There's I always say hi to everyone, and I try to, say hi and say their name, especially the newer people, so they know I know them. But it is just, you can see the reactions, and that's my favorite part. Some people just walk past you and don't even acknowledge you, and you say hi to them, and some are, oh, hey, how's it going?
And I would imagine, being part of a organization that has grown quite a bit the last decade or so, I would think that's often a challenge for growing companies is you start out with a core, there's a certain type of personality, a certain group, and then as new people come on, new teams form, new personalities are led by those teams, and for an organization to get over the hump of only ever having the same type of, person or personality, I think that's an important milestone to get to, and you need people like you, or you need people that can really interface between a variety of groups.
It's communication, so it depends on the department. And so my biggest push is usually keep the communication open. So depending on whether the group's introverted, extroverted, whatever, really having that basis of communication. You as a supervisor are approachable. I can come to you with questions. So at the end of the day, the personalities kind of all just fit into place. If you have a group that communicates well, and we don't always, that's every organization everywhere. It's always a constant goal, and things that you hope work out don't always do, but communication ultimately.
You're always calibrating the machine.
Yeah, exactly.
It's never ending. But so you guys have a really cool place to work. You just put in another expansion. What is the Excel story and history? I know at one point, was it in Camel Sport? Is that where it started? And there was a decision to invest here in Fond du Lac or go outside of Fond du Lac. What does that timeline look like?
Yeah, so we just celebrated our 30th anniversary. Excel was founded in 1990 by Gary Runge. So he was in Campbell Sport. I believe at the time he had 1 or 2 employees.
It sounds like a familiar Campbell Sport name.
Yeah. So I think he was originally from down there. Lives in Fond du Lac now.
Okay.
But he had 1 or 2 employees, and I think business started to grow. They started with just architectural and structural engineering services, and as they hired more employees, they obviously were outgrowing their space in Campbell Sport. So eventually they decided to purchase the property up on Camelot Drive in Fond du Lac, where they built the first building. And I think the capacity that they built it for, I want to say was 50. Something, it wasn't huge, but it was maybe for 50 people. And they moved up here in 1996, I believe. So a year or 2 prior to that, which is just important in our history too, is Gary had sold 49% of the company to the employees. So he owned the 51%. And that was kind of the start of the whole employee ownership. So, that's core to who we are, and we're now 100% employee owned. But so around 1996 was when we moved to Fond du Lac. We had 1 building addition prior to when I got hired in 2013. And I can't remember what year that was, but that added capacity to 100. And someone will probably listen to this and tell me I'm getting the numbers wrong, but you get the idea. And the company, or I should say Gary, retired in 2006. So when he retired, he sold the remaining 51% of the company to the employees, making us completely 100% employee owned. So, big investment on the management team at that time, but it has obviously paved the way for us to continue that to this point. So we had one addition before I started, and then since I've been there, so in about 9 years, we've added on 3 times, and continually along the way, we've also been adding different design services. So, we just started with architectural and structural engineering. Then we added civil, then we added MEP, so mechanical, electrical, plumbing. We started a surveying department, process engineering. And ultimately, as we're, adding all of these design services, we're creating ourselves as the kind of design firm that's a one-stop shop for our clients. So you're building your expansion, we can say, all right, here's our, menu of services, and you can come in and pick what you need. And maybe you're working with other people on some of the services, but if we needed to, we could provide all of these to you under one roof in one location. So our building, after all these additions, our most recent one being completed last year, is kind of like the old country farmhouse where you've added on. And it's a great building, state-of-the-art facility. It's got a lot of character, yes. I have to have several maps for new hires, like, okay, this is the department here, this is here. Just come to my office if you don't know where you're going. But yes, it's become a really great building. We, with our most recent addition, we brought capacity to about 350. So
capacity is cubicles plus offices?
Cubicles plus offices. And we're already out of room. So we're looking into an addition again next year to add a 2 or 3 story on the side of the building, hopefully bringing capacity to about 500.
Do you have locations in other states as well?
We do not.
Okay, but you are licensed for many of your services in all states?
Yes. Yeah. So we're licensed in all 50 states and 6 Canadian provinces. Okay. So we can do work across the country, but every single employee works on 100 Camelot Drive in that office.
Yeah, we've worked with you guys on a variety of things over the years. My dad used to use Excel, and I think we still use them for all of our structural PE stamps for light poles in Florida and other parts of the country. And I remember at one point when we started to get into LED lighting, this was 10 years or so ago, and we didn't really know, we didn't have the engineering capabilities that we do now. And, I knew we worked with Excel Engineering. I'm like, I wonder if they could help us design a light fixture. And I had no idea what architectural engineering was at the time. You're in the business of designing buildings, not products.
Right.
So that was, I remember, I think it was Jeff, was one of the structural PEs that was doing all of our...
Jeff Cranky?
Yes, yes. I talked to Jeff. I was like, can you guys design a light fixture for us? He's like, that's not what we do. So we... And then, we used you guys on the structural side for a long time. And then we had to figure out how to design a building. It's like, where do you go to figure out how to design a building? Let's talk to Excel again. Mm-hmm. So we met with Jim, and Jim pulled in, process engineering team, and then he's like, well, this is what a master plan is. And I'd never heard about a master plan. So, master plan.
Sounds impressive.
Yeah, it sounded cool. It's like, the first step was, well, let's maximize the footprint of the lot that we own. So then, Jim put together an initial design. We worked on some process flow, and I think you guys ended up doing the civil engineering too on the building with Keller.
Oh, sure. Yep.
So it's been great. It's been a great partnership. You guys have taught us a lot, maybe without even knowing it. But great asset to Fond du Lac.
Yeah, that's great, and it's good to hear. Yeah, I mean, when I first got hired there, my family actually made fun of me because I would see where all of our projects were. So everywhere we would drive, it'd be like, Excel did that project. Excel did that project. And finally, my sister's like, okay, Lauren, I get it. Excel probably did that project.
Well, welcome to the club. There are light poles everywhere.
Yeah, I believe that.
So it's pretty much every parking lot at some point, I've pulled in and checked out the light poles that nobody else notices.
I graduated to doing that when we were on vacation.
What does your husband think about that?
Well, my mom was unimpressed with me. We were in Tomahawk, and I'm bigger pitch with this. They had light poles that had flower pots built around them instead of a hanging. Did they check the EPA on that? I'm sure they did, and I'm gonna call and say, hey, I need the specs on this. I want it in the new parking lot. But
nice. That is cool.
I told everyone to stop. I had to take a picture. I directly immediately texted it to Tyler, and he's like, "You've graduated to the new level of nerd status. you're eyeballing light poles on vacation.
That means you're passionate.
True.
Well,
That's true.
it was flowers,
We've done those before.
and it was Chad's lying to me then.
We've done flower hangers.
It's not. I'll show you the picture later. It's not a hanging. It's like
the planter.
The planter is like enclosed around the light pole.
Oh, really?
So it's really pretty. Yeah,
Cool.
I'll show you
We'll
a picture.
check that out.
It's really neat. Dono and I broke it down and figured out how we could do it.
Nice.
So.
Nice. So what's next on tap for you guys? Continue to grow, and are there other markets and services and things to get into? I know food processing is big.
Food processing is probably 30 to 40% of our business. And
we're in the cheese
huge.
state, so a lot of cheese and a lot of milk.
Sargento, Sartori's, the Pudo, all of those. So yeah, it's definitely a food and dairy thing for us. But we've also really grown in our retail department and even some of our niche markets, which I would say like precast engineering, so like concrete engineering and structural glass, our light gauge department. They all do specific portions of structural projects, so they're not necessarily our traditional under one roof full service, but they're working with different people across the country. I think Tesla, Facebook, some clients of theirs, and that's really interesting. So those bring in huge sales because I think our light gauge department and precast are some of the biggest providers of these services in the U.S. Midwest areas. So it's interesting, we have a light gauge department of 50 some employees, and there aren't many other firms around the U.S. that do it. So we actually have a lot of diversity in our portfolio of what we can do. So even when like COVID hit, if something were to happen with the market this fall, we have so much in so many different areas that we always feel pretty safe in the sense that we're going to be able to continue working with a lot of these repeat clients and projects and that sort of thing. So always bringing in, new services if it makes sense to the company, and we don't have to. We're a very lean overhead team. So on the administrative side, we have acquired some companies, and it makes a lot of sense for them if they don't want to deal with the HR, the payroll, but they can bring in revenue for us. So recently we acquired a marketing studio, and that's been great because our clients can use it. We have specific clients with the marketing department, and then all internally, they're developing all our social media. They can do videos, all the drone work for project photography and videos. So there's some things like that will bring in that make a lot of sense. Furniture procurement. So with our interior design department alongside the architectural group, you're picking out furniture for your new office. So, well, what a great thing. We can bring in our interior designers. They can work with a furniture procurement specialist to, get you squared away in your new facility. So we're always looking. We kind of are just like taking a break right now to see what all happens, I think, with the economy this fall. But we're always looking, for different ideas. What can we bring to our value-added services ultimately?
So on the human resources topic, what were some of the surprises once you got into it about what HR actually is? I know there's the systems and the processes side of it, and then there's the people side of it, and it's kind of this all-encompassing term. But I think until you're actually in it, you don't realize how much of it is. There's ranges from the handbook to dealing with new interns to pretty much everything. So what does that team look like at Excel? It's just myself. It's just you. Okay.
Yep. So HR was not what I went to school for. I went to school for marketing. Like I said, I kind of just found myself in the HR role, but I love it. I didn't realize how much I loved policies, procedures, processes that were just very cyclical, and I can do a good job and continue to improve my own, ability at them. Yep. The thing about HR, obviously, is most people associate it with the person that yells at you. You're not following directions, and it's very contradictory as a position because on one side of things, you're reinforcing policy and telling people what they can and can't do, and on the other side of things, you have to be a therapist, a counselor, really like someone who is vying for the employee themselves. I want you to be happy at Excel because I'm going to lose you if you're not. Yep. But I also want you to make sure you're following all the procedures and rules we have in place. So it sometimes is a little bit of a balancing act. I saw I think it was like one of those memes that said human resources, a lawyer, counselor, teacher, principal, detective. And then the second description was, will hire your brother's nephew's roommate's cousin or take their resume. So, there's a lot of elements that go into it. I'm constantly blown away. I do love it. But, I do everything from career fairs. So I get to go meet a lot of students, and that's a lot of fun for me, to terminations, and that's not as fun.
The not so fun part of the job.
Yeah. And sometimes that's just life. I always try and treat it as, and this is a lot of what I say. I'm a product of Jeff and Steve. So I'm a product of our president and CFO, who really kind of helped me mold into that role. And they kept things really simple. And we try to do that as well. And I want to treat you like I would want to be treated. So if I'm sitting in your shoes and you're getting fired right now, I want to treat you like I would want to be treated in that situation. And, a lot of times you have to be honest. And I try to be extremely honest, because usually that's the best way to communicate in disciplinary situations, terminations, conflicts between employees and supervisors. It's the more honesty and the communication, usually you have less issues in the long run. So it's definitely, there are harder days
for sure,
and there are easier days. And I'm more of the empathetic kind of person. So the harder days can wear on you after a while, but the reward of working with people and seeing people develop and watching them grow their careers is really probably my favorite part of the job itself.
Aside from on-the-job training and learning as you go and learning from some of the principals and the owners of Excel, what other resources and books or continuing education have you used?
So I think I've had a lot of resources more on the side of, we work with 5G Insurance, and they are our broker, and they have so many different resources for me. So they have an HR hotline.
Rely on your vendors.
Yeah, and it is, who do you know and who's been in these positions before? I've done trainings. I've done a lot of the, skill path trainings. I've done different trainings on the HR side of things, and you learn stuff, but it's never really the same as being in the situations themselves.
I completely agree.
So I really value the actual situations I've been in and watching the leaders above me, how they handle it first. And that's probably been the guts of where I really learn everything. So there's a lot of great resources, and what's the actual HR, what's the compliance? What's the actual HR law here? And there's a lot of good resources there, but nothing's going to teach you how to handle yourself in a tough situation, apart from experiencing it yourself or watching someone else.
Yeah, and then once it comes up, to go look for your available resources at that point in time to solve the issue at hand, versus trying to memorize things at one point that you may never use.
Yeah, human resources is kind of a joke, because everything is
you can say
everything
that.
is black and white, right? Like,
and there is no black.
It's not.
Yeah.
So that you've got these policies, you've got procedures. This is the law. It is the most. It's supposed to be black and white, but it's the most gray area.
It's like being a lawyer.
Yeah,
you attempt to solve every issue by creating every rule and have every asterisk and fine print. But at the end of the day,
you just dig yourself in a hole then. The more you specify. Yeah. So we try and keep things
specify. Use that. You use that word.
We try and keep things, as general as we can. Because it's like a family.
You want some breathing room when making decisions.
Yeah, and because life happens.
For sure.
That's the biggest thing I've learned just watching our 340 employees, and you guys can relate.
For
there
sure.
are days you come to work where you're not there mentally, and I don't care why that is, because there's stuff going on at home, but you have a little grace. There's times where if I know you're working hard and getting your job done, this isn't quite getting accomplished on this side of things, or you missed that, I'm probably going to overlook it, because I know you're a hardworking employee and there's stuff going on at home, or you had a bad day, you had to put your dog down, like that could take people out for weeks. You really don't know some of that stuff, and so just life happens to everyone. I have my good days, I have my bad days, and I know my employees do too. So just a little bit of grace, a lot of communication, and try and help people get past that.
So if somebody went to school for HR and they came out of school with their first HR job and they read your book called HR 101, what would be some of the first chapters of the book that you'd want them to read?
Oh man, first chapters of the book, HR 101. This is good. I got to think about this for a second. I've talked about writing a book, but more on the waitressing side, because I have a lot of stories there.
Talk about HR.
Yeah, but HR, gosh, don't lie.
Yeah.
That is my number one. If you are an employee, do not lie, because the truth always comes out. And I have just watched people dig themselves into holes. Like, don't lie. We're not dumb. Like, people figure stuff out.
I'm picturing you as Toby right now from the office.
I don't.
Like, the whole time you've been talking about the HR piece, I'm trying, Goodbye, Toby.
Actually, it is funny.
Head.
Digression for a moment, but did you see the movie Office Christmas Party?
No.
There's an HR, and it's one of the comedians from Saturday Night Live, and everything is just so spot on that she does. And I'm like, oh God, I hope that's not me. I hope that's not me. Gosh.
HR 101, don't lie.
Don't lie. Don't lie. Take ownership. I mean, that's a huge part of what we do and who we are. If you take ownership in something and you're passionate about it and you want to succeed and you work hard, you're going to go places. I mean, that's just, as an employee, you're going to easily fall into step with all of the company's policies. You're going to easily fall into step with your boss, the people you work with. And it's really just that mentality of, I'm here to help the company make money so that I can do well. We can have benefits, as a group. It's not that singular mentality. It's we're here as a team. Mm-hmm. So that's part of, I guess, my HR 101 too, but that's more on a personal side for Excel because we're employee owned. There's a lot of accountability there that comes into play. HR 101, don't make your resume 2 pages.
1 page?
1 page,
okay.
Please.
Cover letter or no cover letter?
I don't read cover letters.
Okay.
So I think some places do, but personally it's like, oh, do you have the experience?
Yep.
If you don't have the experience, are you the kind of person that looks like they're going to, work well or succeed and work hard? So the 2-page resumes is always a good one for me.
So do you do all the phone interviews? Like, do you or does that go to the engineering or the engineering teams?
So it depends on the situation. I start the interview process.
Yep.
Sometimes I'll ask the department heads, like, do you want me to screen people ahead of time? It's funny because with the obvious job market the last year, we aren't getting 10 resumes for one position. We're waiting all year to get 2 resumes. So we're interviewing those people.
Yep.
We're probably bringing them in no matter what, just because there's not as many candidates as there used to be. At the career fairs, I'll go through and I do all the initial interviews with the employees or the students at career fair, and that's always a fun learning experience too. It's usually a sweaty forehead rub and then a handshake, and their hands shaking. It's kind of fun.
That's the part of the job I enjoy the most, or one of the more, I shouldn't say the most, but it's like I do most of our phone interviews. I do all the all the walkthroughs, the tours.
I'm glad you called it a tour and not an interview, because Adam likes to fake people out and tell them, okay, well, you like to do this thing, and I am not victimizing myself.
Like this already.
Personal experience? No.
So when I first interviewed at WiLL, Adam emailed me and said, hey, we're not really hiring in our marketing department right now, but I think you're essentially an interesting person. Why don't you come in and just take a tour? Well, a tour turned into a 2-hour intensive.
It was not intense.
It was pretty.
So you're saying it was a ploy to get you in the building?
He positioned. Just come walk through the building and check out what we got going
They've
on.
They've got 5 cameras watching you while you're.
And then I got out of here and I had 3 text messages from friends of friends who knew that I walked through the building. They're like, "You're going to WiLL?" It was. So Adam likes to do tours.
See, that is
smart, code for
though.
Interviews.
I think that's.
It's like how you want. You kind of want the person to be in an environment that more resembles like how they're going to be on an average day. Like if everything is so formal, so stuffy, well, of course people are going to act differently.
I was like, holy smokes.
Well, sitting at a table,
I walked out, I'm like,
Yeah.
that was an interview.
If you're getting interviewed, you have your rehearsed answers, right? And so when you're taking someone through and I actually, it's funny you say that because we'll have employees come in and, the supervisor's like, I don't really know. I'm not really sure if it's a good fit. And we just added with our recent addition a bar and golf simulator in our basement. I'm like, take them down. If they're 21, take them down for a beer. Go hang out with them post interview. It's still the interview, but you just call it like let's go down and chill out a little bit. And that's really where they probably get the best gauge on an employee.
I feel like you can accelerate things by 10 interactions.
For sure.
Get people comfortable and it's not even I don't think interviewing should be tricking people. I think that's where a lot of companies go wrong is okay, let's trick somebody into working here. But within 3 hours or 3 days of somebody being in an environment, they're going to know a lot about the company and they're going to know if they really want to be here or not. So it's be yourself, try and get the person to be themselves. And that's it's never perfect, but I think it increases the likelihood of, whether it's a good match or not.
Well, I always joke that hiring is like dating, and it is. Hiring employees is a lot like dating. Sometimes they're going to leave your company for no other reason than it is them, not you.
Yeah.
They've got family stuff at home. The commute might not be worth it.
Yeah.
And same with interviewees. They might not pick you, and you offer them a better compensation package. Your building's cooler, and there's elements that go into why it's just not a right fit, and it's kind of. You can't overthink those situations as an employer and say, well, we got to redo all of this and we've got to offer $5,000, annually now more. It's really just saying there were factors outside of what we could have done that person decided not to work here.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes you have to, one particular case isn't necessarily, like you said, representative of the process or whether, I'm sure from an engineering standpoint, it's easy to overthink it and try to solve all these problems that might not actually be problems. But you're right. Sometimes it just doesn't work.
It's not a good fit. Yeah.
Just the way it is.
And then you don't waste the time and they don't waste the time because it probably won't be a long-term thing anyways.
Yeah. So recruiting, so you recruit engineers, there's non-engineering positions, I'm sure. Where do you go? Do you go to colleges? Do you use recruiters? Do you have, do you do referrals? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the dynamics of the candidate market over the last year have really changed dramatically, especially post-COVID. There was that time frame where, I think still, people looking for new jobs are unsure of the financial stability of companies. Are they going to stay open? So you're kind of starting from scratch to a degree. Like, how do we really let people know that we're doing well, that we want them to work here? So a big part of what we do is career fairs, so for all the entry-level positions, we go to Michigan Tech. They have structural and civil engineering. MSOE, obviously, is a huge school for us, Milwaukee School of Engineering. That's all architectural engineering specifically, so more on the building design side. Platteville, UW-Milwaukee, Marquette we're starting. So there's a good amount of students locally because we've really found that the more you kind of go non-locally, you might get employees that come work for you for a few years and then they leave. They go back home. And I can relate to that. I probably would do the same thing, but you don't really have that guarantee that they're going to come and stay with you for a long time. So we've tried to keep it more local on the school side of things. We do have an employee referral program. We now have increased it to $5,000 per referral, just because, that money gets taxed and we're compensated really well. So it's like you kind of have to give them a little bit more than just, here's $500.
Sure.
When the time that's taxed, they're getting $300 and that's fine. But they're going to put more effort into bringing in an employee if they're making a significant amount of money, especially students right out of school. Like they're our biggest advocates. I just graduated MSOE and I'm going to go tell all my friends, come work at Excel. So we really try and encourage that because paying an employee $5,000 is going to be a lot cheaper than paying a recruiter $25,000. So we work with recruiters on positions that we need specifically. The one biggest issue I've had with recruiters lately, and I'm curious if you've had this yourself, but I feel like what they used to do is actually go out and proactively recruit employees from different companies. And now 90% of the resumes we get, employees are laid off, or it's like this pool of candidates they're choosing from, and it's usually like the bottom of the barrel. It feels like from an employer side of things. And occasionally we'll get a diamond in the rough, but like overall recruiters, I've just lost a little bit of the value on that side of things.
Yeah, we've had so my brother-in-law's in the engineering recruiting business, as you may know.
I take all I said back.
No. But it's, we've had good luck. I shouldn't say luck, but we've had success on the recruiting side and the referral side. On the recruiting side, what I've found is it's extremely important for the recruiter to understand the company culture and not just go through the motions like they're any recruiter. Like they, the same, almost like act as if they were actually working here. And I think that's, and my brother-in-law many, many years ago, he did some hiring for us and hired 7 positions or so, and a lot of those people are still are still here. So we've had success on that side. We did a lot of hiring in 2019 for some of the sales positions with recruiters, and had had a lot of success with that. I think just in general, the last 2 years have been weird.
I think that's part of it.
That's definitely part of it. But it's a mix. Referrals are always are great.
They're gold.
I mean, that's a great way to do it. It's one of those things where it seems there's momentum in referrals too, where it's once you get a really good core team and core group, it seems to get better and better, like as word spreads.
Absolutely. And I mean, your employees are your biggest advocate.
Yeah.
They're also smart enough to know they're not going to just refer anyone and their brother and have this person come in and
filtering
fail, because it's
process.
a reflection on them. So
for sure,
there's a lot of value in that. And so we've kind of we've hired 90 people.
Wow.
Since this time last year, between June and June-ish,
yep.
which is just insane. Now, some of them, at times it's desperation hires. You feel like you're really busy
yep.
and you need to just bring someone in. We're going to train them from scratch. And that's great. I mean,
yep.
there's value there too. But when you get to the point where you're bringing in 20 students out of college plus 10 people that you're training from scratch, that really takes a leg on the business side, because now you're investing so much time in the training that you kind of wonder, okay, how are we going to get past this training peak? It takes
yep.
a year or two for people to really feel like
sure.
they're confident and comfortable in what they're doing. So since then, it's just been kind of all right, let's pause and think on the hiring side strategically. Like, we need to bring in people at this point that can jump into a project. And like I said, we really haven't had these pools of resumes or candidates coming in. We're starving for anyone that has 5 to 10 years of experience and is licensed. I mean, I'm sending emails and messages on LinkedIn all the time, trying to just reach out and proactively look for passive candidates. But people are happy where they are. And I think employers are smart enough right now. You got to treat your employees well,
for sure, because
the market's so high, and I do think we've had several offers that we've sent out where employees take it to their current employer and say, hey, can you match it? The employer matches it. We don't get them. So, it's good for them to do, but it's just a very weird market on the hiring side right now.
Yeah, it's definitely been a weird couple years. I'm sure, some of the COVID challenges and being in HR, I'm sure were not so fun to have to work through. And I know you guys are very, working in person is important in the collaboration, and I think I can see that in construction and we are too. Like, I think there is a lot that's lost by not being in person. Maybe it doesn't have to be 100% of the time, but that the vibe and the collaboration and the creativity and all of that's just difficult. And going through this construction process so many times, either Excel or Keller brought in these blueprints and these plans, and you've got 6 people around a table and you're sketching things. And you're trying to figure out, it's like, how could you do that via Zoom?
Oh, you can't. I mean, it's
like it's not even possible.
No. And we're fully in the office. We don't offer remote work. We give everyone, 5 to 10 days. Okay, you have to go, your charter cable's getting installed. Like, okay, well, it's not really going to take much attention. You have a 2-year-old, or I shouldn't say 2-year-old, that'd probably be harder at home. You have a 6-month-old and they are sick and you have to pick them up from daycare. Like, we're understanding that there's things that pop up like that if you can work and you're fine working, like, we allot a certain amount of days for those pop-ups. But because we're employee owned, we truly believe owners come to work. Yeah. There's 2 different kinds of owners. There's the kind of owners that have inherited companies or grown into roles and or started them from scratch, and they've made it. And if they want to stop being involved at a certain point, good for them. They deserve it. They put the time and energy into it, or they either were born into it and they have that luxury. Like, good for them. But then there's the owners, and I think this is you. There's the owners that are so passionate about what they do. I mean, I remember you telling me about the LED lights 10 years ago, and it was like, wow, I knew this was going to be a big thing. And you could have gone 2 ways with that. You could have just said, I'm fine doing what I'm doing, but look at the business. I mean, there's no doubt that you're involved, you're here, you're part of it. It's that ownership mentality. So we really believe that being present in the building is just so instrumental in moving things forward. And this is the coolest thing. So I went on our strategic planning meeting this year, and it was our board of directors, myself and our CFO, and just watching these managers, and there's so many brilliant minds in this room. And you got to remember, they're all engineers and architects, so everyone's idea is better than the other one. They're all right, and I love it. But I just left that. It was a couple days in Florida, and we, it's just talking about business strategy. it is infectious watching owners and leaders that are passionate about the business. And you feel that as an employee, 100%. So it trickles down into every single aspect of your workplace. And I worked for the Gillises at Gillies. I worked for the Hilberts who own the bowling alleys in Fond du Lac.
Yep.
They're all there. Those people were there. I've always been around the employee ownership. Like, you own the company, you're part of the day-to-day operations.
Owner-operator.
Yeah, and that is the kind of person I want to work for, and I'm guessing most people do too.
Yeah, I think that's a great observation. I think, just the willingness to, like, I think, be part of the problems. Like, if there are problems, you will go in the direction of the problems. I think where a lot of cases, if owners are not involved with the day-to-day, it's just so easy just to, like, put things under the rug and, delegate everything. And it's, in my mind, it's like, if there is a major problem, you should attempt to try and solve it first, especially if it's core to the business, before you, like, delegate or bring somebody else in.
For
and
sure.
I think, like, you're running in the direction of problems, especially the last couple of years. There's been so many things every single day, every single week, and that makes perfect sense. If it's an owner operator that's willing to go into the trenches and do things, that hopefully spreads to the whole operation.
Yeah, it just is an accountability and a motivation for everybody.
Yep, for sure. Well, one thing to close on, I'm curious, so being in Excel almost a decade, what are some of the things, that whether they're engineering companies or manufacturing companies, what are some of the things other than what we talked about that people can do to attract, like, young, talented people to their operations? I think especially maybe keeping about, like, smaller organizations, larger corporations, larger companies, they have large HR departments, they have large marketing, departments that are geared towards attracting young people to manufacturing. But I think maybe where small and medium-sized companies struggle a lot is, they don't always attract, like, the next generation of talent to their businesses. So if you think about companies in Fond du Lac, what are things that they can do, like, in the next quarter, the next year, to start to get people attracted to the business?
Well, I could talk about this for about 5 or 6 hours.
It's related to other things we talked about, but I think, action items for small businesses in this area, what are some of the things they can do to start to tip the scale in that direction?
We've had internal discussions about this as well. Even at our size, we're always looking for the next generation. I actually met with 2 students and their moms this week at Excel. They're seniors in high school are going to be, they don't know what to do. Is a trade school okay? Should I go to the 4-year school? And if I didn't work at Excel and I wasn't in HR, I'd probably try and get, like, a public speaker role and go to different high schools and just preach to kids. It doesn't have to be a 4-year degree.
Oh, for sure.
So it's, and that was
we talk
lost.
about that all the time.
Yeah, I think our generation.
Because we were all pressured to do that.
Yeah,
like, it was, you're a failure if you didn't.
Yeah, you didn't
do
have
that.
an option. It was like, you're going to a 4-year college.
And for sure.
And it's amazing because, the way the pay scale at Excel works is there's 2 different tracks, right? So one is you can go to a 2-year school and start as a technician 1. And the other track is you can go to a 4-year school and start as a designer 1. Well, obviously the 2-year school students are mostly local, so they're going to Moraine Park. Well, we can hire them part-time at $20 an hour while they're an intern.
Yep.
They're completing school, paying for school, and they're graduating 2 years earlier than the 4-year student. And then by the time they're, 2 years in the company, the 4-year student's just graduating, and this person's probably debt-free. So the 2-year school to me is a huge opportunity for employers. Get into the Moraine Parks, get into UW Fond du Lac. Email the instructors, not just the career services, but actually email the instructors in the departments that are related. So like the mechanical engineering departments, any of the manufacturing departments. Say, hey, can I come in and talk to your class for an hour?
Yep.
Do it once a semester and really sell the company and what you're doing. Because even on the engineering side, most of the 2-year schools are offering civil engineering. And I put civil engineering in quotes because a lot of students think, oh, that's just structural engineering. Well, civil engineering in a 2-year school really is just the basics of engineering anyways. And no students understand that there's mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and those are actually the niche markets that need more engineers and are probably going to get paid more. So for me, one of the biggest things is obviously get into the schools and get face-to-face time with the students. I've really felt like the talent coming out of colleges right now, surprisingly, I talk to them and tell them we're all in the office, and they're intrigued and excited about that because they've been remote for the last 2 years. You know, they want to be back in.
That's super interesting.
Where I feel like, you know, the people that are 5 to 10 years older than them are like, oh, I want to be at home. It's like, no, I think we're finally seeing that regress back to, no, I want to be in the office. I want to graduate school and go meet people. I'm a young professional, that sort of thing. So I think getting FaceTime, where they're so used to, whether it's virtual learning in high school or now college, getting in front of them and interacting. So that's a big thing. And then
what about no college?
Yeah, no college. I mean, go to high schools and say, if you have the kinds of programs and the kinds of abilities in your company to train someone from scratch, we really have started switching to like the youth apprenticeship programs in Fond du Lac. I wasn't really aware of that, but that's hiring students at junior and senior levels in high school. And youth apprenticeship previously, I think, was coordinated through Envision, and they still assist with it, but CISA 6 runs the program, and it's bringing in students at an apprentice level for 10 to 12 hours a week. So we're starting that for the first time this year, and it's through the school year that it'll be done, but they can work in summers also. And talk about getting local people from local high schools working for 10 to 12 hours at your company. By the time they graduate as seniors, they might want to
they're going to be so far ahead.
They're trained. I mean, they're as good as a full-time employee, and they can start as a full-time employee.
I mean, they can learn so much faster too.
Exactly.
You know, that's, you know, it's, if you think about from an engineering standpoint, what's the core of what somebody needs to know, regardless of the discipline? It's, you know, an electrical, mechanical aptitude, an interest in how things work. At least on the product side. I know on the if you're designing large buildings and structures and things like that, that's a little bit different. But you know, electromechanical aptitude, you know, understanding, you know, computers and software. I mean, so much of the time is spent on a computer,
right?
In SolidWorks, in AutoCAD, in, you know, some of, you know, these renderings and these, you know, simulation programs. You know, there's the idea that an engineer is sitting at their desk, you know, making calculations all day long. It's just that maybe it happens in Excel, but there's so much reliance on other tools and other systems, and young people are good at learning that stuff.
Well, they are. I mean,
they can learn it so fast.
I'll get managers that say, "Oh, this person doesn't have any AutoCAD or Revit experience. They're 19 years old." I'm like, they grew up with a computer.
Give them a month.
Learn it. Yeah, give them 2 weeks. I mean, they'll learn the basics.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that, you know, convincing your managers and your hiring managers to say, it's not, they're learning it's such a different pace than what we learned for the software side of things. So yeah, I think just starting at the high school level, you know, and the last thing I would just say on the whole attracting talent and retaining them is Fond du Lac has struggled as a destination. For young hires, and we're working on that, and I think there's a lot of things in motion. Gosh, I think you guys had a podcast about bringing a brewery to Fond du Lac. Like, that should still happen. But the other thing is, we need to focus more, and this is what, you know, my boss Jeff, our president, actually said, we need to focus more on being a destination employer, not a destination city. So it's our job as different employers, whether it's manufacturing, engineering, whatever it is in Fond du Lac, what are we doing to attract them specifically? We can't rely on, you know, the city, the local things that are going on, but like, what are we doing to bring them into our building and attract them to us? Like, what's our company culture? And I know that's a really diluted term these days. Everyone wants to have a company culture. But they need to come into the building and see it to believe it. And you need to decide, you know, I had someone say the other day, I'm desperate. I need to hire someone. Right now, everyone's desperate. And I think candidates can feel that. So it's not about being desperate and just throwing monetary value at people and saying, hey, we'll give you this much, come work for us. You need to be strategic in a desperate environment and say, we can pay you this, this, and this, but this is what it's going to look like in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. These are the things that you'll be offered and you'll develop into over the next few years. You can't just start acting in desperation. I think there's got to be more of a strategy behind why you want this person and why you need to bring them in, as well as how you need to convince them why they want to be there.
And I think if there are things to work on, which, you know, we are far from perfect, there's always things, you know, we can work on. You know, it's really the same with any employer, but, you know, really the things you're promising and the things, you know, the culture that you're pitching should match reality.
Yeah, they have to be realistic.
They have to be truly. And there's, again, everybody has a different understanding of things, versus before they start, the first year, the second year. But if there are truly things that need to be fixed and worked on, it's not just enough to like talk about it. Like, you have to actually do that and live it. And I don't know, you guys seem to do a great job, and we've tried to model a lot of things that we've done around that, and do our best to be a great employer in Fond du Lac, and keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think the last thing to add to that would be get upper management involved.
Yeah,
because you can offer this, that, and the other thing. You can have a drum set in your office.
Who would do that?
Who would do that?
Who would allow that?
You can
nonsense?
have
I'll have to talk to management.
a golf simulator. We have a pool table.
Yeah.
I heard some places have nap pods. It's like, okay, these are all great things.
Yeah.
No one will use them or utilize them if they don't see other people doing it, making it like an approved thing. So like, if you're going to offer luncheons, picnics, if you're going to bring in entertainment, if you're going to do this, that, or the other thing, get your upper management involved, or the employees will never buy into that culture.
Yep.
They'll just say, this is one more fluff thing that they're trying. Yeah, like you said before, the tricking into
it's
believing
the ping pong
something.
tables in the office.
Yeah.
For sure.
You got to get involved, and we struggle with that at times too, because everyone's busy. That's
there's real work to be done as well.
Yeah,
which it's a balance, and it's just creating a great culture, having things that people can enjoy, staying focused on the work and the customer, and just balancing all of that stuff.
Yeah. And be prepared to fail, because you won't always do a great
and learn.
job.
Yeah, get moving, get learning, adjust, do it again, keep doing it. So.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for all you do.
It was good seeing
it was
you
good
again.
talking.
Yeah, thanks.